She has a fierce maternal instinct. Her children were spiraling with depression, OCD behaviors, to panic attacks, and they were missing so much school, but she kept trusting her gut. This story today, I hope, will change the way you look at your home, your health, and your children. This could save the way your kids are healing and wondering what's the root cause of their ailment. You might feel crazy, or you're seeing so many specialists that just keep treating the symptom. So stay tuned for Laura Hott's story. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, and I know this is your first podcast, and I kind of threw this idea at you because I hadn't seen you in 3 years. Yeah. I had met you at my very first healing grieving retreat in Sedona. Yep. And I remember you walking in Sedona, and we did some somatic exercises, I remember, on this vortex in Sedona, and just the connection and how I could see your soul and see kind of where you were at then. Yeah. And
we were partnered up.
To
stare into each other's eyes for a long time.
Yeah, for a really long time. We didn't know each other. No. We didn't know each other.
It was a connection for sure. Yeah.
And they're like, okay, we got to stare the stranger in the eyes.
Yeah.
And at first it was definitely very awkward, you know, because I'm like, okay.
And then you get used to it. Mm-hmm.
And then it was like this calm, and almost I could see your soul and see kind of the pain you were in then, you know, and probably could see my pain, you know, just hadn't even been a year since I had lost my husband and so much going through.
And I really think that time was preparing me for, I had no idea what was to come.
Oh, no.
After that, for me, that was like literally right before my life fell apart. So,
and that was 3 years ago, and I honestly hadn't really seen you since then until a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I remember, you know, 3 years ago when you had mentioned your children kind of having some health issues, and you weren't quite sure what the root cause, and same in your marriage. Yep. And I ran into you, you know, a couple of weeks ago to get my eyebrows microbladed.
We did your eyebrows.
Ooh, I love it. And I couldn't believe the story that you shared with me about the root cause of your children, because it was a similar story to my family. So I'd love for you to start telling the audience when you start seeing symptoms for your girls, when that happened, if you could, you know, maybe each individually for those girls.
Yeah. So out of my 3 girls, the first 2 had health issues years ago and kind of went down a path of figuring out answers. My middle was diagnosed with Lyme disease and PANDAS. And it took several doctors to get a diagnosis, to figure out what was going on, but she just had a lot of random things happening that I knew in my gut, these are all correlated somehow. But heart issues, gut issues, OCD, bags under her eyes, like dark circles under her eyes. She was so tired. She would just lie around.
What was the heart issues? Like, what was she feeling?
So she had just had a virus, and she was 3 years old, and she kept saying, my heart's beeping. And I felt it, and it was beating so fast. And so my husband at the time felt it too, and he was like, yeah. So I was 8 months pregnant with my third. And so I took her to the ER. She was diagnosed with SVT, supraventricular tachycardia. I think I'm saying that right. I'm not sure. But she was told she would be, she was put on medication, and that she would be on it for life, and that it would get worse, or that she would need an ablation or be on medication for life. So we were waiting for her to get a little bit older to have the ablation.
And she was 3 years old at that point.
Yeah. 3 or 4.
And she had the heart. And what other symptom did she have then, other than the heart?
So then after that, so she was put on medication and everything. After that, then she got mono, and that's when she completely changed. I thought, oh my gosh, mono is like, I mean, obviously I took her to the doctor. She was diagnosed with mono. But months after, it's like she was not functioning. And I kept thinking, mono is crazy. And I had mono in high school. I know you can be really tired. And but after about 6 months, I was like, this is not, she was so OCD, rage, anxiety, little things. It was like walking on eggshells. Like if you poured a little bit too much milk in her cereal or not enough milk, or she could hardly wear any clothes. Like everything bothered her. She had one shirt. And all my girls have been sensitive with clothes and sensory issues, but this was like a whole nother level.
The way it felt on their skin. My son had a little bit of that. If I remember, like socks, if they're too tight or certain things.
Yeah,
I remember him having
they
that.
were always like that, but this was like she wouldn't wear underwear at all. She wouldn't go. I couldn't take her places because she literally couldn't get clothes on, and she would just be screaming in her room. Like, and this is my sweet, soft little, kind little. Like she was never like that. She was never. And she would just scream in her room, and she would just out of nowhere, I hate you. And it just wasn't her. It was like I could see her raging. I could see her not herself. So that led me to different doctors, different naturopaths. I finally got answers and a diagnosis with looking into PANDAS, which basically, or PANS. PANDAS or
And
PANS.
how long did that take? Like
so that by the time she was 7.
Wow.
So these things started when she was 3. By the time she was 7, I remember wanting to cry in that doctor's office because he said if you would have had the ablation, we were waiting for her to be 8 to have the ablation. So we hadn't done it yet, but he said if you would have done it, it wouldn't have done anything because the reason she has heart issues is Lyme disease. And sure enough, like doing a protocol for Lyme disease called the Cowden protocol, and going off gluten and changing her diet and stuff like that. She was off her heart medication, and never had to have the ablation. And she doesn't have the heart problem anymore, which the cardiologist said she would have forever. And so that all was just like a whole crazy time. And then after that, my oldest was having a lot of health issues, and it led me to finding homeopathy, which my middle was doing so much better, but there were lasting things with her. She had misophonia, which is kind of sounds like a weird thing. I'm sure some people have this, but it's just a matter of like how extreme and how much it's affecting your life. But she can't. It was like certain sounds. So like chewing, anything that had to do with eating, like a fork hitting the plate. It was fight or flight. You could not chew gum around her. You couldn't chew anything. And that was, the more I learned about it, because in the beginning it seemed like, just get over it. Come on. But the more I learned about it, it's like telling someone with a headache to get over a headache. Like she could not be around those noises. And so that was a lasting thing that didn't go away with the Lyme protocol and stuff. And I just knew there was more that needed to heal her from that, because it was pretty life altering. Like going on road trips and things like that, she would be crying if her dad took like a sip of water, like a little sip of water. She
so it affected everyone. And what about your other girls? Were they starting to have symptoms too? Your other girls at the time?
Yeah. So so my oldest had struggled with depression and gut issues a lot, and migraines, and kind of did different doctors for that, managed things for a while, and then it really plummeted at a point where, looking back now, I know there was mold in that house. We've been in a lot of different houses, but rage, a lot of rage. She would have rage for absolutely no reason. And I felt horrible because I felt like she was grounded all the time. I felt like she was always in trouble, but looking back, I mean, these were things like she couldn't control.
Yeah. And your girls missed a lot of school as well, right? Due to the health ailments. And now you talked about mold. So do you feel the mold was in your home from when the girls were really little? Because you said it started at 3 years old.
Yeah. So back then, my oldest, around when she was maybe 14, she's 19 now. So when she was 14, this naturopath that did diagnose my middle with the Lyme disease and PANDAS also found that my oldest had mold mycotoxins in her labs. And he said, it doesn't mean it's in the house you're in now. It could be from any house that you've lived in. And
because
so,
it stays in your body. Because I know
yeah,
we went through
if
that
you're not,
because we had mold in our home in Alaska. You know, I didn't know that when I lived there.
Yeah.
But now that we finally got a diagnosis just in May of this year, it's like, oh, it must have been in our home in Alaska. And that's why when you're sharing that, I feel a lot of my husband's mental health, my kids now, it's dawning on me that the mold on top of all the other toxicity, the fear that we were living in, you know, really affected our immune system.
Yeah. And look, mold is everywhere. Mold is in probably 8 out of 10 houses. So I think it's hard for a lot of people to think that mold can affect anyone this much, because why can it affect some of the family and not maybe, usually it's the dads, that the husbands, that it doesn't affect as much. But sometimes it's a lot of like smaller symptoms with them that they don't even know, with like testosterone or different things that it can affect, and mood and stuff like that. But it's also a matter of your genetics. So some people can detox that easier. But my kids
we all have that MTHFR
gene mutation, which I learned about. Yes, all these things that I wish I had known back then, but I've learned so much now. But they don't detox like a normal person. And even that is common to have. There's different mutations. My middle had the worst one, which makes sense. She had the worst health issues at a young age. But then my third didn't have any health issues, and I was always like, oh, I have one. It's like, she's good, she's healthy. And actually I would always say that, and my ex would always say, just wait, something's gonna happen, because like it was just like always something with the other two. And I'd be like, no, she's fine, she made it to. Anyways, my other two at young ages were struggling, and my youngest was good until 9 years old, and then her whole life, hers was the most dramatic, and completely stopped her life. So
what started happening for her?
Yeah. So with my other two, I found homeopathy, and they were doing good. There was so much healing with homeopathy after several doctors. So I had already known about that. I'd known about PANDAS and PANS. So my youngest, she didn't have anxiety. She didn't have gut issues. She was a shy kid, but that, you know, not really any health issues. But it all changed at Disneyland. She had her first panic attack, and it was pretty severe. It was after a ride, and she was always afraid of rides. And so I think it was just the final straw, that it's kind of like your bucket can only hold so much of whatever the load is, of toxins, of emotional stress, of trauma, of mold, of all of that. And so her bucket was filling up. I didn't know. She also had nitrous oxide 2 days before this happened, which filled up her bucket, because she has the MTHFR gene mutation, and you can't detox that as well. So I didn't know you're not supposed to have nitrous oxide if you have that. So her bucket was filling up, and it spilled over from the ride was traumatic for her. Yeah. It was just enough trauma to,
because she was scared. It was like a scary ride for her.
It was scary for her.
You know, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I feel fear plays a big role in all of this.
Yes.
Because I feel fear, let's say, okay, so I know you had shared with me your marriage, you know, from early on, you went through a lot in your marriage. Yeah. And I'm sure there was times a lot of fear.
So much fear.
A fear, the affairs, a fear of, you know, what if it would be on my own? So living in constant fear also suppresses your immune system, and it hits your gut. Oh my gosh, you're talking about that bucket. Yeah. I feel that fear bucket got so high to a tipping point. That ride was that tipping point of fear. You talked about nitrous. She was probably fearful going to the dentist, for which so many do. Yeah. And it was that tipping point of the fear that really wreaked havoc on her immune system. And that was that tipping point.
It just made her crash. It was, like I said, the final straw. So after that ride, we were walking, and she said, I don't feel real. And I was like, oh yeah, it's kind of weird, huh? Like you feel like you're in a movie, like the ride. I'm like, I don't know. And she kept saying it. And she said, I don't feel well, I don't feel well. And then she jumped in my arms. She was 9. She had never done this before.
Oh, like leaped in your arms?
Leaped in my
Oh,
arms.
I've had
And
my
she
kids do
said,
that one
I'm
time.
dying. I
Oh.
can't breathe. I can't. And you couldn't talk to her, but she couldn't at that point say what was going on or what was wrong. I could see. And then it dawned on me that she was having a panic attack. And what I learned later is she would have a certain anxiety called depersonalization, where you don't feel real. I've never had that before, but I've heard from others that it's like the worst feeling. I feel like I've had like glimpses of that, of a feeling for like a second, but never where it's lasting like that. So she still was having that feeling and then had a panic attack. And then after some time calmed down, but then it happened 2 more times within that evening. And I was like, okay, we're out of here. I can't stay in Disneyland. And her triggers were like, she couldn't be around people. She couldn't be around the noise. She couldn't. And ever since that day, just over 2 years ago, she was not the same kid. She couldn't be around people at all. And she couldn't, it just, things got worse and worse. She couldn't leave the house. She couldn't get in the car. Things made her dizzy. She felt really sick a lot. She started having tics, certain movements. She would put her head like in circular motions all the time. Super irritable. Could hardly talk to her. She couldn't concentrate. And just things got so hard that she wasn't able to even be with friends or family. Her birthday was a month after that. My family wanted to just come by to give her like a gift, and she did not want anyone to come over. She couldn't be around. There was something not right. I mean, it wasn't something I could talk her through or tell her, let's just think about this and it'll get better. Like, this was so severe that there was nothing I knew I wanted to do. Eventually, I mean, I took her, she was in the beginning able to go to the doctor. She had labs done one time, and they did find certain things that she was able to get a diagnosis with the PANS. But
explain
after that,
maybe what is PANDAS, because when you mentioned it to me, I had never heard of it. And so I'd love for you to explain it.
So PANDAS is basically, there's a lot. It's a hard thing because it's not just like a set. This happens and they have these symptoms, and it's a lot of different symptoms that they can have. But basically, if they have physical symptoms along with mental symptoms that a lot of times happen overnight, not always. My oldest, hers was never like this overnight change, but kind of slowly got worse. But my middle was due to Epstein-Barr, was the trigger for hers. But basically, it crosses the blood-brain barrier, and the brain becomes so inflamed that they have severe mental issues. And those mental issues can be anywhere from depression to OCD to anxiety, panic attacks. So my youngest, it was these panic attacks, depersonalization, and then she couldn't socialize around people at all. So there's a lot of different factors with it. Like I was saying, with the toxins, the viral exposures, the terrain, their genetics, their immune system, and then it's usually if they have like a couple of, there's a whole list of psychological symptoms. So I can't remember, it's like a certain amount that they have from that, and then a certain amount of mental issues, and then they'd usually be diagnosed with like, oh, this sounds like PANDAS. So PANDAS is specifically from strep. So if they've had strep, and my girls had high strep antibodies, but they never had strep throat. They weren't sick. Yeah. And another weird thing that I found out later was my girls never had fevers. They were never like very sick kids and never had fevers. Well, I know now you want your kids to have fevers every now and then. You like maybe twice a year. That's a normal thing because it shows their immune system is fighting off. So a lot of times that's a sign, not that your kids are going to end up with PANDAS or PANS, but a lot of PANDAS or PANS kids don't get fevers. And a lot of parents, moms are super happy when their kid gets their first fever. because they're like, they're healing.
They're
So
healing.
PANS is due to anything else, basically. PANDAS is specifically brain inflammation. It's pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric syndrome or something like that. I would have to double check, actually. I can never
And I
remember
feel with
that.
the inflammation in the brain, because I know I had brought Mateus for a brain scan, and that's what they had
Yes.
found, inflammation in the amygdala, which is also the fear center, the fight and flight.
Yeah.
And so, and if you are around mold or other toxins, then it makes your gut more susceptible to that environment. Like you said, mold could be anywhere,
Yeah.
right?
So
it's hard to
I
avoid.
went down this journey of the PANDAS and the PANS and my kids, and I had heard from Facebook groups that mold a lot of times is a factor, but I always brushed that off. Like, no. They got better with homeopathy. I didn't look into mold. But then 2 years after the homeopathy, when my youngest had her onset, my oldest relapsed, and she was doing great for 2 years with the homeopathy. And she relapsed. Everything, all her symptoms came back. She was super depressed, like bedridden. She had mono, bedridden, depression, anorexia. It's like she's a very passionate. She has hobbies. She loves ballet. She was doing pom. She loves her friends. Nothing mattered anymore. It just all changed. So they were both struggling majorly. I still didn't think of mold. So it showed itself when our dishwasher broke. And when our dishwasher broke, we pulled it out, and there was mold behind in the whole kitchen island was black mold.
That's the thing with mold. It's sometimes so hidden, or even, I know we had done multiple tests in our home and, try and see where it's so hard to find, and it could be kids' schools and behind walls, and it's, air test, it's relative, if they have fans on or anything, it's really hard to find until you really dig in, but it does cause so much harm to mental health, especially depending on where your kids are at, for as far as being able to detox their environments.
Yeah. So once I found that, it all made sense why they both were not doing well. There was also black mold in my oldest bathroom. Actually, when we did remediation, or we did a whole treatment where they spray this dry, what is it? Vapor stuff. It's like a treatment throughout the whole house.
Almost like, is it ozone? I've heard you could do like a whole ozone treatment.
It's not
I'm
ozone,
not sure.
but there's so many different things, and it's so hard. I don't even know if it really helped or actually made things worse. I would I was trying to do whatever I could, and then later I'd hear like, oh, that makes it worse. And my kids they were just struggling. They weren't doing good, but I went to take all the vents off to do that treatment, and you never noticed my oldest, her vent in her bathroom was completely full of black mold.
Oh, wow.
So, anyways, I knew then. And now when I see people talk about PANDAS and PANS,
because now you've moved, right?
Yeah.
So
moved out. Well, yeah. So at that time is when my marriage fell apart, for good. And I needed to move because of divorce. And, I look back now, and obviously I think everything was happening because it needed to get us out of that house in a way that that left no option to, with mold. Like, I don't know if I would have been able to convince my ex to move because I don't think he ever really thought of that as a problem.
Yeah, a lot of people don't. They're like, oh,
even though we found it and
yeah.
they weren't doing well with their health. I just don't know. If I hadn't,
because was he feeling like having any symptoms or feeling that it was affecting him?
He didn't have any health issues, but again, I mean, I've heard with men, it can be even like hair loss or, different things like that.
But I also heard, didn't you hear that testosterone actually helps you avoid from getting the toxicity from mold?
So a lot of
times
like
a barrier?
Men, they don't have as many health issues because they have higher testosterone, which like somehow protects them. So, and because all three of our kids have the double mutation, MTHFR mutation, it most likely, I don't know what he has, but most likely he has one. I have two, but he might be more protected with detoxing better.
And what about you? Did you have any symptoms? I mean, I can't, first of all, I can't believe what you had to go through and watch your your own children. As a mom, that has had to be so hard. That's why I said I think you're the most resilient mom out there.
Yeah.
Because this is not just a year battle.
Yeah.
Trying to figure it out. This is decades.
It was the hardest time of my life. With my youngest, just with everything stopping, I think the things you think are hard as a mom with normal, healthy kids, obviously there's hard things in life, but I remember being stressed at times of like driving so much to ballet and work and school for the kids, trying to like manage my day, you know? And when everything stopped, my youngest couldn't go to school. And there were several times we would try and get her there, and she like could not do it. Actually, the last time she went, she had a panic attack at school, and they had to wheel her out in a wheelchair, and she was mortified and had her head down, and she hates attention. There's no way. This is like, she can't go back. There's no way. So many things stopped in her life, and I just remember thinking I would give anything to be the stressed, busy with all those things, you know.
As long as your
I will
kids are
never
healthy,
take that
right?
for granted.
Yeah.
Never take that for granted. I will. And fast forward to now, and she's doing all those things, and we can get to that.
I think when I saw you, it was the first day back of school.
Yeah.
Right.
I literally, the last couple of weeks, I'm in tears when I think about she's back living life, and she just made POM. She's in 7th grade. She's behind for sure, because homeschool was kind of a joke. Like, I couldn't hardly even teach her anything. She couldn't really concentrate or do much. But her homeopath would always say these kids, when they get better, they catch up because their brain is working how it should. And so it was frustrating those years, because I would get frustrated with her that she couldn't like do a little bit of schoolwork, you know? But I also would have to remind myself her brain is not normal. Her brain is not healthy right now. It's sick. And I can see that now, that she can do things that, I mean, she couldn't leave the corner. When she finally left the house, then it took time to like get past the corner. And then finally the first time, like, she could get in the car and go to a store. I remember the first time she went into a store, it was like the first time she went to a public pool. All these things were huge milestones that she hadn't done in over a year because she was homebound. So I can remember the original question you asked me.
Did you have symptoms? Did you notice symptoms being around that mold as well? Or were you able to?
Yeah, I mean, thankfully I was like functioning, and I wasn't super sick or anything, but I've had autoimmune Hashimoto's, and I've had like arthritis stuff, and I had carpal tunnel where I'd have to wear a brace, and just a lot of aches and pains and things like that, which I realize now the mold had played a part in that for me, because living in mold depletes your immune system, and so then you're also depleted of your minerals. And so this is interesting. I'll come back to me, but for my youngest, she always had cavities. She was my one kid that for some reason, every time we go to the dentist, she had a cavity when she was little. And she would brush her teeth like twice a day, like normal, like my other two. Didn't eat a lot of candy, really. She just, I don't know. She always had, when you're living in mold, you're depleted of these nutrients and these minerals. And since being out of the mold and doing the homeopathy, which balances your body back and restores your body back to how it should be, she has not had one cavity. Like the last time I took her to and she hadn't been to the dentist in 2 years. I couldn't get her there. Yeah. And I thought that it was the beginning of this year. I thought for sure she has a cavity because she hasn't been in 2 years. And before that, it would always be like cavity. And I took her, and her teeth are amazing. And it's just showing that
If people don't
It's
understand
little
how it could be little
things.
things like
It's
that.
little things. So
Yes.
looking back, I see little things that were symptoms, but nothing major with her. But it was cavities, and she had eczema. She always had eczema, even as a baby. And now that she is healed, almost 100%, no eczema, no cavities. It's the little things that are like, even that. The interesting thing too is like her fears. Homeopathy can heal at a mind, body, soul level in all different ways. And it can heal like kind of irrational fears.
Yeah.
And she had irrational fears of spiders, of bugs, and of thunderstorms, which can be normal for kids. Hers was pretty extreme. It would be like she would literally like shake, and one time she threw up. She was so scared of a thunderstorm. But you just think, oh, that's just how they are. But all of these things have gotten better as she's healed.
With the homeopathy and
homeopathy,
moving,
yeah,
and and being out of that
healing
environment. Obviously, I think being in a toxic relationship, there's an energy there too.
Yeah.
I know we had talked before that you had felt your husband's energy, like this darkness as well, because I know that I have as well, being around that.
Yeah.
It almost, my body would want to keep me away from it. Like there was a dense, dark energy because of their constant environments, were so toxic.
That's interesting, because I've realized now, when I was in that marriage, like on the weekends, I would get up on a Saturday and a Sunday, I would get up and go to hot yoga. Just right when I would wake up, I would get up and go for a run, go to hot yoga or whatever. But now I actually love to sleep in. I love to take my time. I love to be in my home and have a slow morning. And I've realized I was getting away to feel safe. I was getting away to feel peace.
Yeah.
Because I didn't realize at the time, but it was an energy that I didn't like, that I was around and in that home. And you kind of just shut off feeling in a way and just go about your routine, but it's just interesting as I look back, like
I did the same thing. I remember I get up and I almost had this, like, I don't know if it was anxiety. I was like, I gotta go. I go for runs. I could go for miles, sometimes 8-9 miles.
Yeah.
I'd be gone. And I'm like, I just needed to do that and I could come back. But there was, definitely something that I couldn't, it was really hard to be around. And even when he talked constantly about these things that he feared and that was so negative, I'd say, I can't talk about this. I could feel it energetically, what it was doing to my body, and to be around that day in, day out. And kids, kids co-regulate with their parents. So even though we can hide that we're in fear or things are really wrong, they can feel it, just like dogs.
Yeah.
Dogs, they say, okay, they'll mimic the owner, right? Well, I've realized that kids do too. Kids will take on what we're feeling and co-regulate with us, and it shows up in them, and they'll feel the fear, they'll feel the darkness, and I don't know what people want to call it, but I almost felt like mold in our house in Alaska. It was almost a messenger, that there's an entity, a darkness, something in our home that my husband was bringing in, and it was almost this messenger. I don't know why I feel this way, but I was almost, like you said, it was telling me I need to get out of this home. It's toxic and toxic environment.
That's interesting. I definitely had fear. It was a marriage that I knew I couldn't be in anymore, but I had so much fear of how to leave or what's going to happen when I leave.
Of course, a single mom with 3 kids to support your 3 kids.
This is all I've known. And they say the brain, the most uncomfortable thing for the brain is unfamiliarity, something unfamiliar.
Yes.
The unknown. And that was so hard for me.
Yeah, because how many women that I know, they want to leave, but they're like, how am I going to afford rent that is now for, a 3-bedroom is like $3,000-$4,000 a month, and it's like, how am I going to pay for all that? So
and I mean, our marriage was we had been divorced and remarried before, we had been separated 2 times, almost divorced 2 times before the final one. And it was so much anxiety that I had. I didn't realize, I've learned later about a trauma bond, the things, why I would go back. But I think one really hard thing for me still was always just, if I had left in 2019 when we were separated, and we were divorcing and we ended up getting back together. But if I had, no, that was another time. It was 2022. If I had left in 2022, another time that would have been before my kids got sick, Yeah.
But you can't, there's
And
no right or wrong.
I know
but
things happen.
yeah.
Things happen
Yeah.
the way they should. And I do see so many blessings along the way of, I knew when I found out about the last affair, I knew I was done. I didn't know it was a full-on affair, but it didn't matter to me. I couldn't live this life anymore of like the questioning, and I had received anonymous letters about him and his affair. And I just kept praying that I would find out the truth, because I thought, what if I leave and it really wasn't? What if this was a misunderstanding? What if this was just...
You wouldn't want to believe it? Like, it was just so hard to see.
Yeah, like, what if I
truth?
left and it wasn't what I'm thinking it is, because I didn't have proof. This letter gave me some things, but not a lot. And then I got a second letter, and then I got a third letter.
It's
and
interesting
it was
that we, as humans, we want tangible proof.
Oh my gosh.
Which
yeah.
mold is sometimes really hard to get tangible truth.
Yeah.
But your kids could have all these symptoms, but you're like, oh, but I really want to see these results.
Yeah.
Is
Where's
there
the
mold
result?
and where's the
Yeah.
results? Like, and same like you,
Yeah.
right? The affair. You want, okay, yes, the yes and no and how long.
Yeah.
But there was but your gut. What was your gut saying?
Well, I knew I was done. It didn't matter. I still wanted that, but then I did get it. I got the third letter. It was a full-on affair. And I was just so grateful for that, because I knew I was done, but it was such a weight lifted off my shoulders to know for sure. And that was just a little prayer that was answered to me, that it helped me to realize I can trust myself, because my gut, that whole year, my gut was telling me something's not right and I would bring up stuff to him, and it was always, I'm looking for something. You're
always told, like,
I'm
you're
the crazy
one. Yeah.
I'm never gonna be okay. I'm just always gonna be trying to find something. And looking back, my gut knew that it was not good.
And same with your gut, with your kids' health. So it's almost like God is showing you signs, like, you're a very intuitive person. You are, so get more in tune with that and trust that first intuition, that gut intuition. I feel God has sent me lots of signs like that too, because sometimes I give the benefit of the doubt. Like, when I moved here, I was very kind of protective of my family and who we're going to meet, and so I'd meet somebody for the first time and it was like a no. But then I'm like, well, they're, part of our community, part of the school, maybe I'll give benefit of the doubt. But after I put myself in their heart and soul, then I'm finally shown that, oh yeah, that was a no for a reason.
Yes, and sometimes we have to learn that lesson over and over and
over.
I
have many
so when
times.
I say, like, oh, if I had only left in 2022, it would have spared my children of, but I wouldn't have had this surety of, I tried for so long to make it work, and it got to a point where I knew. And I look back, I can trust myself. I can look back and realize I felt a certain way, and I can trust that. And that really did give me trust in myself that I hadn't had. I had felt crazy.
You're a healer. Look how you've been healing your children. I mean, I know you've seen many specialists, but a lot of times they were just treating the symptom. Yeah. But you have been healing your 3 girls.
Well, and homeopathy is all based off of symptoms. So that's on me to track and tell the provider what I'm noticing. And whatever I'm noticing, they will then tweak the remedy. So it's been a lot of work. I still have my 2 folders for the 2 girls that my oldest and youngest, of everyday symptoms, and they're little, I mean, from bloody noses to meltdowns to everything. The provider wants to know every little detail. And that's, I mean, sometimes I'm asking them questions that they don't want to talk to me about. It's like
I know I put my kids through like collecting their poop and
they're like, Mom, and I'm like,
my boy was mortified when I was like, oh, well, for this test,
sometimes it's not easy. And they're kind of used to all my questions now, but they don't always love it. But it's a lot of observing, and it's a lot of work that I had to do with. But it's by being patient with that, I've seen miracles. I've seen miracles with them. So I
love you brought up like spirituality. Like, I know for your family now, for your own healing, have you guys brought in more spiritual aspects or energy work or anything like that?
So I was so wanting to learn about all, we met at that retreat, and that's when I first started getting into breath work, and breath work had been amazing. I've been doing that. I haven't done it recently, but that was really healing and helpful in ways that I never thought could be. I had always heard breath work. Sure, that sounds great, but doing it was life changing. And then I've started working with a lady that does energy work and energy sessions, and I've within the last maybe almost a year. I work with her, and I've seen amazing things with that as well. So I love learning about different ways to heal, because I think for so long, I think doctors are needed for certain things. But if you really have something that is just autoimmune or something that's taking over your life, or you need to find the root cause and someone that's going to help you truly, truly heal, rather than just masking the symptoms, which I feel like in the beginning of all my girls' issues, that's kind of the road I went down, and tried a lot of different.
How many specialists do you feel you went to see?
Yeah, I've at least 10 for my middle. And medication was helpful for some things. I mean, my first two couldn't function without medication, and that was really helpful for a while for with anxiety and things like that. But over time, other symptoms started coming, getting worse. And I just knew in my gut that the medication isn't, it helps them to function, which is great. But why is this happening? Especially if there's physical issues, like I said, with my oldest, with migraines and gut issues, to where she could barely drink water without her gut bugging her, and it would correlate with depression. And so I didn't want to just forever have her on a medication. I wanted her to heal, whatever. And as she heals with homeopathy, her gut heals and her depression goes away. The first week she was on the first remedy we ever did, she was out of her room and laughing with her sisters for the first time in like a year. And I remember like, no, this is too good to be true. Like, this is just a fluke, because I didn't believe in it yet. I'm like, we'll see. And as time went on, she became herself again. I mean, with anorexia, I thought, as she gets better, we're going to have to go see like a therapist or something. And no, all of that went away as she healed. It was just a part of the PANDAS and the PANS. And so it was amazing with homeopathy and the energy sessions I'm still doing. Do they
do energy? Your kids do it,
so
or just
I can do it with my provider for them.
Okay.
Through me.
Oh,
so,
good. Yeah.
Well, I don't even know how it works,
but I believe it makes sense to me, just because from early on I was told, take care of me first, because then you bring whatever. If your nervous system is regulated, or if you're feeling good, then you can definitely bring that to the home.
Yes, that's a good point. I remember being told that a lot with doing breath work. I remember feeling like I don't have time to work on me. It was so much with the divorce and the move and the healing my two kids and trying to homeschool and me working, and I didn't have time, but I was always reminded that if I heal, they will heal too.
I always say that actually, I just have my friend who just moved here. And of course, I know how it is to move and from Alaska to here and how much stress that was. And she was, really worried about her son. She has 3 kids. And I looked at her, I said, Maite, it all starts with you, and then because if you have to take care of yourself right now, this has all been so much, because then you'll see the ripple effect to your kids afterward. Because I've seen that. I'm like a big science project too,
Yeah.
The more that I did that work, that's why that was my first retreat where I met you.
Mm-hmm.
But the guilt that I felt because my son had separation anxiety. Oh my gosh. And I was like, I can't leave him. I'm his only person he feels safe, because he was so afraid to lose me after losing their dad. They're like, what? He'd always be like, what if something happens to you? And then I was just his comfort blanket. So that was the first time I left, but I remember when I came home, how much better I felt, and then I'm like, I got to do this again. And I remember going, I think 6 months after, to something else where I could just get away from home for a little bit, from all the to-dos, because I was all into my masculine. You've got bills, you got to work, you got to take care of the kids. I'm mom and dad, and it's just all so much. Even taking care of my mom, she's living with us. So to just get away and start working on myself and making time. And I know that is a lot where people are like, I just don't have time. But just those little wins of, even I say, get up 5 minutes earlier and start with that and do journaling, breath work, prayer, really bring in more light. Because I do feel like mold and things like that is such a dark density, it's so dark. So bringing in more light through breath work, through prayer, through energy healing. I had done that too. I remember getting this energy healing. She's like, oh, you got to work on your heart. I had all these armors, probably thick armor on there, and I do believe a lot in that, because I walk into a room and I can feel everybody's energy, I can feel, you can walk into a room.
And it's hard to not take on, with my kids, with my youngest, with how hard it was for her, but she was home all the time. It was so heavy for me. It was such a heavy, she was so hard, and that wasn't her, but I had to do something for me at times because it was exhausting. Even if she was home and not doing anything, I constantly felt guilt that she's not learning right now, or guilt that she's not. I would try to get her to just go to the park and run around. I would run around with her if she would do it that day, just to get her to see sunlight, because she would be in the house 24/7 every day. And so it was this heavy, heavy guilt of like that she's not living life, that she's not going to birthday parties, that she's not going to dance, and and so the feelings now that where she's back doing things, and it's just amazing.
I'm so happy for you. I love that. How are the girls doing now? Like, just to give hope to somebody, to a mom or a parent out there that's going through this.
So my 19-year-old, all last year, and so she missed her second half of her junior year, most of her senior year. She was able to get back to school in person the end of her senior year, and she was doing really, really good. And still struggled that summer with some health issues, nothing horrible, but she moved to New York in April, which is her dream. Her dream is to do acting, and she's moved out there not knowing anyone. She's so brave. She's doing so good, and she's so happy, and she loves it there. And of course, I'm always asking her, well, how are your symptoms? Like, how are you feeling? Because I don't want her to like plummet, but she's so happy, and she's doing so good. And then my youngest, so she stopped going to school the end of 4th grade. So she just went, and it's been homebound ever since then. This year is 7th grade for her. And even through the summer, I didn't know if she'd be able to, she's been doing so much better, but I didn't know if she'd be able to walk into school and go to school yet. She walked into school the first day and didn't look back. Wow. And when I drop her off, she has the biggest smile on her face. She signed up for drama.
Wow.
Which this is a kid that literally couldn't be around family or friends in the beginning. It was people. She couldn't be around people at all. And now she's doing drama. And then tried out for pom. She's back to ballet. I mean, I feel with the hardest 2 years of my life, nothing makes me happier. I am happier being out of a toxic marriage, but nothing makes me happier than my kids happy and healthy and thriving. And I remember a mom saying, whose son had gone through the same thing as my youngest, and she said, he's living life. It took 3 years, but he's back to everything. And I remember that gave me hope, but I was also like, 3 years? I was thinking it would take like a couple months for her. So 2 years was a lot longer, but I'm just so, so grateful.
So to almost
to be
like,
where
what would you say? Just to have perseverance and almost patient with it, you know, because
listen to your gut. It's really hard. I want to tell everyone just to do resilience naturopathic. If you think your kid has PANDAS or PANS, look into what that is, and also look into resilience naturopathic homeopathy. I tried different places.
They're based out of San Diego, right?
They're based out of San Diego, but it's all Zoom calls anyways and phone calls. And I tried a couple different homeopaths, and I ended up going back to them. They specialize in these kids. And so there's times where the healing seems really slow and you get frustrated. And then there's times where you have freaking miracles and you're like crying to your provider, like, oh my gosh, she went to ballet for the first time or whatever. It's all these things and she's feeling better. And honestly, if my oldest hadn't have had such drastic changes the first week she started it, I may have not kept with it because it was slower for my youngest. But I know this works. Sometimes it's a lot of trial and error with what remedy helps them. But once you find the right one with the provider, it's a miracle, and they can get back to all these things that you think maybe are their behavioral things or that's just how they are. Those things can heal, and they can be happier and better.
I'm so proud of you. I mean, I hope you know how incredible mother you are, because they are thriving right now because of you. You fought so hard for your girls, and you still are.
Yeah.
And now you get to celebrate those wins. I hope you see that.
Yeah.
It's you not giving up, keep asking questions and digging in the why. Like you said, you were a little girl and always asked why?
Well,
now you know why.
My personality is to ask why to everything. So as a mom, I will never stop asking why.
And I feel I'm the same way. That's why I'm like, okay, I go to the, doctor's name. I'm like, well, why? Why is he getting like this? Why is it behavior? And then I'm like, oh my gosh, there was mold at the school. Oh, there's mold in Alaska. And I'm like,
there's an answer to whatever.
The fear, the traumas that we've been in. Yeah, not every kid in that classroom was getting symptoms. A lot of them were.
Yeah.
And a lot of parents didn't want to see it too. A lot of times that's fear-based, right? And but at least now you're like, well, I'm not going crazy.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And I will never take for granted all the things that they can do. Because once they don't have their health,
that's
all you want.
And mental health too. I remember, I think the first year we had moved here, Sophia had a time where she struggled, and I was like, okay, I got to keep her from school. I mean, I just knew, the schools don't like it. You take time off, but I said, her mental health is number one. She is not doing good. And I think she just I need to figure out, get to the root cause, spend some one-on-one. And there was just so much trauma, so much hurt, so much pain. So I really spent a week. I took everything off of work, off of everything, and just spent the week with her and be like, what does she need, and work on the nervous system and the health. And, I was like, okay, is it a trip to Alaska? We go to Alaska, just she was missing and wondered if there was still, the connections there, and just a lot of grief, and so sometimes it is just following your gut instinct as a parent. I think that's truly the best advice. It's not like one thing worked for me is going to work for you. Just each child is so different.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different treatments for this. I mean, I know there's a lot of different doctors that can do different things, and there were a lot. I feel like a lot of doctors, I could take a piece of, like naturopaths and things like that. I could take a piece of something that we did with them, and that helped a piece here, a piece there, and that helped, or I got information, you know, and then, but the homeopathy for us is what truly
And the
healed.
homeopathy, I saw that Mateus and Sophia, and it really, this one you can buy on Amazon, you can buy at, you know, grocery store. Is it called Ignatia? Not Echinacea, but it's one of them.
One of the remedies?
Yeah, it's C6 is what I remember. We have one
okay,
like
so
that, but
I
they're
don't
all
know.
different.
It is really easy to buy them, and but the thing is, what I've seen with my provider, the way they are so specific in how to dose it. I mean, they'll like tell you to dilute it to water and then take 1 teaspoon this amount of days. I would have no idea, like, so because you can go just buy at Sprouts. They're the little blue tubes, but I would do the appointments, talk about all their symptoms, and then basically there's like 6,000 remedies that they can, based off of that specific child's symptoms, they can figure out which remedy is best for that kid. So I can't tell anyone like, oh, this is the remedy that heals PANDAS, because it's going to be completely different for each kid. And the weird thing is that remedy for my oldest that healed her, when you go look at it at Sprouts, it just says for allergies. I would have never been able to like go buy that. So it is like interesting with homeopathy, you know, the way
and finding the right provider that will
the right
dig
provider that
with
knows
you.
how to find the remedy and how to dose and things like that. Because these kids are so sensitive. So with my kids, like if they had too much, it would set them into a flare. They'd be more aggravated, you know, or like, okay, it was hard for me to gauge, like, are they flaring? Is it too much? Or do they need another dose? And there's a lot of questioning like that where I'd have to talk to my provider because I'm like, I have no idea. Do they need another dose? And then they would be able to help figure it out.
I've
like,
been working
I have no
too
idea.
we're at Radiant Health, you know, with naturopath, and they've been so fantastic to get all our tests and get to the root cause. And they'll even pray for you, you know, for your appointments.
I love that.
And they've been fantastic, but I've definitely seen over the years for myself so many different providers, and it's been really
you
hard.
asked me earlier and I didn't really answer, but my health, I'm doing better, but my health wasn't.
For me, because if I think back of being around the mold in Alaska, I thought it was all hormonal, but I was like, well, I was 35 at the time, 44, but it was almost, people were like, well, maybe it's pre-menopause. And I'm like, well, that's still pretty young. But a lot of it was mold, like the hair loss, the fatigue.
I will say my hormones were worse. My acne, I had acne. I mean, it was like liver wasn't great. There were things that weren't great. And I'm still not like 100% with, it's always like, I have thyroid and stuff like that, but I'm doing so much better. And I don't ever have to wear my brace at night for carpal tunnel, which is amazing. Arthritis and stuff like that. Like,
that's so good.
So
I'm so happy. Well, I'm so honored that you said yes, because I know this. I'm like, we have to share your story, because there's a few families that I'm thinking of already that I hope they're listened to and give them hope as to a direction. You know, their gut instinct is speaking.
I really hope that whoever needs to hear this.
And can anyone get hold of you? Like how they can, let's say they have a question or directive, how they can find you?
Well, I mean, I have 2 Instagram accounts. My personal one is private, but I have my business one is lovelyby.laura. Yeah. And anyone can message me on that. And I'd be happy to give information on any of this stuff, because there's a lot. There's still a lot.
It could be overwhelming
for this, but I've been down that road for a long time. So I feel like I've seen and read and done a lot of things for these kind of things with PANDAS and PANS. And but I hope that, because I didn't hear about it. I think it was a friend that posted when her daughter had this, and I remember looking into PANDAS and thinking, that sounds like what my daughter has, you know? So I just hope that more people, I think more doctors and people are starting to find out and talk about it. But back when this all started with my middle, when she was 3, I mean, years ago, no doctor mentioned it. Yeah. I mean, like I said, it was like about 10 doctors.
None of the ones that I had seen until actually me going to a health optimization summit in Austin. Whoa. That is where they talked so much about mold toxicity. Yeah. They talked about MTHFR. They talked about, you know, just nutrition and all toxicity, toxic load. That's what planted the seed to go home and test all of my family. Yes. And that's where we were through the roof with heavy metals, parasites, and mold. Yeah. And then I was like, oh my gosh.
They all correlate. So if you think your kid has PANDAS or PANS, definitely look into mold. And maybe if they don't have PANDAS or PANS, but there's some health issues going around in the family, definitely look into mold.
Oh, because another thing too with mold, that introduces the parasites because you get a leaky gut, the parasites enter and they want to eat the mold, right?
So that's been my oldest, her biggest issues is still just dealing with parasites. Like, that's always been a thing with her gut. And so, yeah, it's crazy how it's all correlated.
I know. That's why I'm like, when you shared, you're doing my eyebrows and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, I've just been going through all this. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I never thought at the time, but looking back, even, my health issues I was going through with, and we didn't go into cavitation stuff,
Oh,
but like,
yes,
that's all linked to, I feel like the mold depletes your immune system.
Yes.
And then
you had so cavitation is from, your wisdom teeth removed.
Yeah, gosh, it was a road to, at the same time of my girls and finding out about affairs and all of that. I was also going down this journey of trying to figure out what was going on. I first had a thermal scan, a thermography for my body. I just wanted to see like inflammation. I was curious about inflammation. And it came up that I had on my right jaw, it was completely different color than the rest of my face. Like something, and the doctor was like, what's going on with your right side right there? And I was like, I have no idea. I had no pain. And then a few months later, I started having like bone fragments come through my gums in my mouth, which I went to like 5 different dental specialists. It was like, why am I having bone come through my gums? Some of them just wanted to do a surgery and like scrape down the bone and then sew it back up. But I was like, but why is that happening? And no one could give me an answer. This is where I'm like, why?
Yes.
So I ended up finding a biological dentist who did a cone beam scan. He was guessing before we even did the cone beam scan. He's like, have you ever had your wisdom teeth out? And I said, yeah, when I was 16. I was 41. And so that was a long time ago. And he said, I think you have cavitations, which basically the wisdom teeth being taken out, those areas are infected, but you don't have pain. And it affects your health. And this happens with root canals as well. And so it affects so many health issues.
Yeah, because it harbors bacteria.
Mm-hmm.
It's something dead in the mouth, like a root canal, will harbor.
They can test these areas and they've found viruses, parasites, mold, all kinds of things that a lot of times when people have Lyme disease and they get this taken care of and cleaned out, their symptoms, they're healed. But so I was hoping it would help my symptoms that I had with arthritis and with acne and with, carpal tunnel and stuff like that. But I didn't know. I just thought, I know I need to fix this because I'm having dead bone come through my gums. So obviously something's going on. Although most people who have this don't have that bone come through, so they would never know.
Yes,
so I'm lucky that I had that, and I had the thermal scan. So I knew something was going on. The cone beam scan did show that basically these infections start to eat away at your jawbone, and you have like holes in your jawbone. And so I did a surgery. This was right before I found out about the affair. I had a surgery where they go in and they clean it out and they ozone and PRF and sew you back up. And my symptoms were like 80% gone.
Wow.
So
I'm so glad you mentioned that because
and then
that's one thing
it was
I
6 months later that they started slowly coming back a little bit. And so I feel like it was a journey. Like it wasn't that everything went away, but once I moved and I realized when you do that surgery, you're supposed to be in a place where you can heal. And I was in the most stressful time of my life, which was not good for my body to have that surgery. So I feel like I still had to do a lot of healing and detoxing things after that. And I'm great now. So everything's so much better.
That's
but
good.
yeah,
That's why I only love temping now as a dental hygienist, a biological dentist, because I've heard that so much with people, wisdom teeth having infections or root canal, and then especially if the top maxilla, then if it's connected to your heart, having a heart attack.
And that was his biggest concern for me. He was like, I can't tell you that this is gonna fix all your symptoms. He wasn't promising me that, but he said, I'm most worried about your heart because the tooth that was the worst is connected to the heart. So, I mean, I'm glad I had it done. That the dentist I saw, he's retired now, so that's a bummer. I can't tell people to go to him.
Go there,
But yeah, it was crazy. But yeah, the fact that that was happening at that time, again, all of these things happening at the same time, I believe the mold was depleting all of us to where these kinds of things with cavitations, a lot of people live with that, but their immune system can fight it off. And, you know, maybe they never even find out. Maybe they never have symptoms, but because their immune system is fighting it off. But I think the mold depleted me enough to where it started to affect me at the same time as my kids and the mold happening and the affair and all of that. So it seemed like so crazy that everything was happening, but now it makes sense that everything was happening at the same time.
Because the stress and the environment. Yeah. Wow. Well, I know a lot of people that be listening, they're going to be directed where to go and listen to their gut as far as their symptoms and their children's symptoms. So I appreciate you sharing your story.
Of course. Yes. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.